you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Greetings, Cybertronians. I'm DrLockdown, and after all this time, I'm finally ready to do this Q&A. Yes, indeed, the channel has recently reached the milestone of 10,000 subscribers, and to celebrate, I have set up this Q&A. Or at least I did about a month ago, but unfortunately, life kept getting in the way. Yeah, sorry about that, but we're here now, and we're ready to go. Now, of course, the questions were submitted quite a while ago. I didn't really have to get rid of that many questions, but there were a few people who put more than one question, and that was kind of cause for disqualification. Sorry about that. But aside from that, most questions seemed fine, so let's get to it! If you could make your own Transformers line, what would it be like? Easy. Legends class movieverse. Yeah, we're kind of getting with that with the Metagate Bumblebee figures, but I'm talking about the original trilogy. I've always wanted a high-quality, third-party Legends take on the first three movies, and I don't think we're ever going to get it, sadly, but oh well, it is what it is. Have any figures broken on you while doing/preparing for doing a video about them? Aside from Zeta Superatron, which was pretty self-explanatory, the only other example I can think of specifically was Fans Toys Slash, or whatever they called that. It was going to have an honorable mention on one of the best lists, but then the ankles just snapped, so I had to disqualify it. In fact, I would have made it one of the worst if I had done the worst video after the best video. If Hasbro made a completely new combiner, what would you like the theme to be? I would like a proper samurai combiner to be done. Yes, we've had the Go combiners, but they've been terrible. I want a proper samurai combiner. One that uses decent vehicles, decent construction, a cohesive design, not like Go, just to do a good one. That's easy. That should be easy. Which Transformers characters do you think would translate well into Lego form, and which one would you pick to do next? Honestly, doing another Lego Transformer is going to be difficult because they flat out cannot do Megatron. The typical tank mode that Hasbro does these days is too warlike for Lego. Starscream would probably be a bit difficult. They might be able to do Sideswipe or another Autobot car, but I don't think the Lego fanbase is that into that. Transformers fans, sure, but for the Lego side of things, it would need to be a really popular character. So honestly, the only two I can think of are Soundwave and Bumblebee. And Bumblebee is a bit difficult because of the way he's engineered, and also because of the Volkswagen license. They'd need to put certain restrictions on how the toy was designed. Restrictions that Hasbro could easily adhere to, but Lego, I'm not so sure. So in the end, I think the only other Lego Transformer we're going to get in that big size class is Soundwave. He's so far the only one I can see them doing, if they even do continue that. Of course, what I would prefer is for them to do a whole retail lineup. Have a bunch of transforming Transformers on store shelves and not at the $300 price points. They could absolutely do it. It's definitely within their capabilities, and they wouldn't have to worry about licensing because they could stylize the vehicles instead. But if they're going to do that, well, I don't know. We'll have to see. I got a lot of questions asking which other franchises I'd like to cover in my toy reviews outside of Transformers. And to be honest, I don't really want to because they don't do well at all. I remember back in the day I was doing stuff like 30-minute missions and Gunpla, but they just went nowhere. Even Diagnosis Insanity videos have a lot of issues. Those videos tend to tank pretty hard. So if I'm going to prioritize something, it's going to be a Transformers review at the end of the day. I'd love to do more Diagnosis Insanity, and if Bionicle ever comes back, I'd love to cover that as well, but unfortunately, YouTube doesn't seem to like that. That being said, I have wanted to cover the Xenoblade games for God knows how long, but I just keep getting busy, because it's a big-ass project. Maybe one day, I don't know, hopefully it'll happen. What was the most shocking Transformers find in Australia? I didn't buy it myself, but for some weird reason, Myers had Prime Unicron. Yes, the Japanese version. The one with all the shitty chrome that makes it look ugly. The one that turns into a mountain and then becomes armor for the other figures. It was just sitting there on Myers store shelves. Though apparently Myers was going to stock HasLab Unicron on store shelves before EB got it, so in hindsight, maybe it's not that weird. Just a rumor, by the way. It's never been confirmed. I only heard that through the grapevine. But it did come from a source that I trust. Is there a figure you liked that everyone else hated, or a figure that you hate that everyone else liked? Yes, frequently. I like making videos about those kinds of topics, because it allows people to consider things from a different perspective. It engages in discussion. It's the kind of videos I really find interesting to produce. Do you have plans to cover other third-party Legends combiners in long videos similar to the Hulky and Superatron videos? Specifically the two Iron Factory sets and New Age Devastator. Yeah, pretty much. It's just a matter of timing. There are a lot of third-party Legends combiners, and I do want to get through all of the ones I own. I feel before I get through the DJD, I need to remake the video on Bruticus, for the Iron Factory stuff, that is. And I sort of have a plan for when I'm going to do that, but it is quite a ways off. And as for Devastator, well, I'm just waiting for a slot to open in the marathon. Don't think it's gonna happen this year because I don't think the script is as strong as some of the other ideas I have, but it will happen eventually. Just give it some time. A couple of people were asking, if you could design the perfect Transformer, what would you want? Honestly, I'm not the kind of guy that likes to be surprised by things I didn't know I'd want. I like going into figures completely blind and then being blown away by them. That's part of the fun here. But if I had to design a Transformer and money would be no object and licensing would be no issue, mainline Death's Head. Easy as that. In your opinion, do you think that third-party companies should up the cost of their figures, or should they lower them slightly to give more consumers an easier way to get their products? Well, really it depends. Most companies, they charge that high price because that's just the cost of doing business. Making smaller numbers of figures means they're going to be more expensive. They're not producing tens of thousands of figures like Hasbro is, they're only really producing a couple of thousand. Third-party is not as big as you think it is. People insist it is, but no. That being said, there are some companies where this is an exception. Fans Toys loves to price gouge, and that's why their former designer left in the first place. So Fans Toys specifically should lower their prices because it's ridiculous. But every other company, they're kind of doing it at cost anyway, so there's not much you can really do. What got you intrigued to get the Ganatron Transformer 3D printed accessory add-on from Shapeways? Okay, so back in the day, I used to follow the Radicon boards on TFW religiously. I would constantly look at them for updates and upgrades and Shapeways parts, and I sort of just came across that as I was looking through it, and eventually when I was doing my Heatwave custom, I thought those combined with some Perfect Effect hands would be a pretty good fit. And so I made them. I just came across them on TFW and I printed them. Of course, I don't really do that many customs these days because I just prefer an official figure to come out. With customs, you have to be very delicate so that you don't scrape the paint, whereas with real figures, you can kind of, go and transform and have fun with them. A couple of people asked me what my favorite Gunpla is. Dark Matter Exia. It's one of the few I've actually kept around without losing it and having it fall to pieces. It's just a really neat color scheme. It's just got a lot of cool shit on it. If I ever need a comparison with a Gunpla, it's usually the one I go for. And of course, do I plan on getting back into Gundam? Yes, I do, but it's a matter of time. I have so many unbuilt kits, and they're all real grade because for some reason, back when I bought them, I was obsessed with real grade. So finding the time to build them is really difficult, and finding the time to watch the shows is really difficult as well. Don't worry, my mates are on my back about that, so I'll get to it eventually. Got a bunch of people asking what my favorite Legacy figure is. Well, one of them's asking what my favorite War for Cybertron figure is, but honestly, there's so many and it's been so long that I can't remember. Probably a good idea to rank them someday. But as for my favorite Legacy figure, well, that's pretty easy. It's gotta be Tarn. I'm well aware it's a very controversial pick. People are either gonna love it or they're going to hate it. And I am very much in the camp of the former. It's just so simple, yet so stylish, so perfectly engineered, greatly articulated. Yes, I know people have issues with the trigger-happy style shoulders, but that's never been something I've really considered an issue personally. I know a lot of people do, but that's just not me. For me, it's just another style of articulation, and since they're robots, you get a bit of leeway with that. And yes, a lot of people do say he doesn't look dynamic in any pose. I just can't agree. I think he looks dynamic in every pose regardless. I think it's awesome. So yeah, Tarn. Pretty easy. Do you think that Hasbro is pushing for crazier character choices in Evolution because of their confidence in Rise of the Beasts being a success, or simply because of Mark Ma now being brand manager and being more open to continuities than Tarn G1? Okay, so sort of the latter option, but not quite. Mark isn't the brand manager. They don't have a brand manager. It's a collaborative effort between Mark, between Ben, between Evan, between Sam. No one's really steering the ship. It's just a bunch of fans working to make that stuff. So yeah, it's sort of the second option, but it's more so that there's no one person steering the ship. It's just a bunch of dudes sitting around at the table talking about how much they love Transformers and who they want to do. So I had a bunch of people ask who I really want done in Generations. The one continuity I have been constantly pushing for in Generations is Movieverse. I have wanted those characters for so long, and yet they're just not there. In fact, we could have had them back in Earthrise, but no, not G1 enough. Thank you, John Warden, for making the exclusives line pointless instead. Seriously, can you imagine a leader class Legacy Blackout? That would be awesome. But if I had to pick one character and not a full continuity and something separate from the Movieverse, if that wasn't possible, Red Mirage. I mean, come on already. It's lit. The mold is literally there. Can't you do him already? And And then building on that question, which combiner would I like to see in the line? I mean, most combiners have already been covered for me. Raiden has an MP in an upcoming Legends version that thankfully isn't Zeta. Oh my god, that was a massive relief when I found that out. Lio Kaiser has an Iron Factory version. Most of the combiners have been done in mainline or third-party Legends. So really, the only one I'd want at this point is Road Caesar. He'd be a perfect companion piece to Star Saber, but no one seems to be touching him. The closest we've gotten is that TFC one, but it's TFC, so I'm not really taking a risk on that. And really, the same answer can be applied to this next question of who I'd want Iron Factory to do next, because yeah, Iron Factory could do a great Road Caesar. That, or I'd like to see just any combiner done in a samurai style, because I think that would be pretty cool. However, if we expand that to any Legends company, not just Iron Factory, it's pretty obvious. I just want someone else to do Superion. The Zeta one was one of the most frustrating figures I have ever taken a look at. And we deserve a better one. We deserve a Legends Superion that's not garbage. A couple of people asking about my favorite / rankings of the War for Cybertron and Legacy Titans. Oof, this is gonna be a tough one. Okay, so I'm gonna try and rank all of them, but I'm gonna leave Metroplex out because I haven't messed with the figure, or even any of that mold, because it hasn't been redecoed, and nobody I know owns Metroplex. That said, bottom of the list, Omega Sentinel is at the bottom simply because I do not care. I know it's a G1 thing, but the color scheme is just incredibly boring. Next up, Scorponok. I mean, it's okay, it's a decent representation of Scorponok, but it's, again, not something I'm really interested in. Difference here being I would sooner buy that than I would Omega Sentinel. Next up, Omega Supreme. I do actually own this one, but I'm a bit bored by him. It was pretty good when I first got him, but these days I just don't really think much about him at all. Micromaster's nice though. Next up, the Ark. I was expecting to despise this figure. I only got him for mainframe, but honestly, the Ark itself is actually really fun. Totally wasn't expecting that, but glad to have it. Next up, Unicron. Yes, I'm counting him as a Titan. F you. I know a lot of people hate this figure. I know a lot of people think it should not have been made. Apparently, it's the most insulting figure ever made, but I can't really agree with that. It's a figure that might be out of your price range, and I'm talking about the release price range, not these shitty scalping prices now. But if you're willing to back it on release, then you definitely got your money's worth. The presence on that thing is unmatched. You just walk into a room and it becomes a statement. Oh, but the kibble, it's a disaster. Not really. I mean, he turns into a giant ball. There's not much you can really do there. And don't tell me about the Zeta one. I'm not even entertaining the Zeta one. Okay, who do we have left? That was Kingdom. Actually, I think I've just gone through all of them. I don't think I've missed anyone. So that just leaves Black Zarak. Black Zarak is awesome. Like, I am so glad to have this, not just for the concept of having a Black Zarak that doesn't crumble to pieces. It's just such a gorgeous figure. I'm so glad he exists, and I'm so glad I have him. Being the closest thing to Death's Head in modern Transformers, what makes Lockdown your favorite Transformer? Lockdown's not my favorite Transformer. It's just a name for the YouTube channel. My favorite Transformers are Raiden, Lio Kaiser, and Shadow Striker from Cyberverse. If you had full creative control over Hasbro, specifically in the Transformers side of everything, what would you re-release / reissue? Step 1, reissue Lio Kaiser. Step 2, reissue Raiden. Step 3, make a reissue line entirely of GPS affected figures. Step 4, HasLab reissues. If something is too expensive to reissue and needs the mold made from the ground up, HasLab it. Easy as that. I know Legends are your thing, but I don't recall you ever reviewing or discussing anything involving the Cyberjets or Beast Wars basics. What's your opinion on those? Don't have the Cyberjets, but I do have the Beast Wars basics, and yeah, some of them are pretty good. I just don't think they're that good of a fit for the Legendary Marathon. They're sort of a bit too big for my taste. I mean, already the Mech Fans Toy stuff is pushing it, but I just don't feel comfortable putting those in the marathon. Even more so for the Revenge of the Fallen and first movie Scouts. Yes, I get a lot of questions about those, and no, those aren't coming to the marathon. I just don't feel they're appropriate on my end of things, and ultimately it's my show, so I can do what I want. What figures did you believe were going to be the new definition of rock bottom, but in reality actually surprised you? Recently, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the Ark. I only want a mainframe, and the thing was $100, so I figured, yeah, whatever, might as well take it. And it turns out mainframe was kind of but the Ark was actually brilliant. Is it hollow in a lot of areas? Yeah, but the engineering is pretty damn good. Got some neat little features here and there. The only little thing I could change is the hands, but I mean, DNA has a kit for that. Yeah, it's a great Titan, and I'm happy to get the Nemesis now. A couple of people posed the question of my favorite Studio Series figure. That's actually a tough one. I might have to think for a bit. Okay, looking at TF Wiki over here, there's a lot of choices. I don't know if I can really pick one specifically, so one that I keep finding myself coming back to, not necessarily my favorite, but one I've probably played with more than most of them, Nest Bumblebee. It's an already great mold, but the deco is what really sells it. You'd think that a dark grey colour scheme like that would be boring, but it's not actually grey, it's gunmetal. And the gunmetal is so lush, especially with the green. I mean, I can take or leave the minifigure that came with it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I've lost it. But the figure itself, absolutely lush. If I had to pick anything else, I don't know, maybe Dark of the Moon Optimus Prime. It's pretty much the Optimus Prime that satisfies my nostalgia, given all its options, given all the upgrades it's got. Just a fun figure, but I'm not really sure I can pick a favorite. Do you think that the franchise is in a good place right now, or do you think that there is room for improvement? Toy-wise, I think it's in a fantastic space right now. The toys are better than they've ever been, and we're getting updates of practically everyone, except Movieverse, sadly. Now, as for media, though, they definitely could be doing a lot more. From what I'm seeing, Transformers Reactivate is just going to be another bullshit free-to-play money sink filled with microtransactions, and I mean, we all could have predicted that. And Earthspark is fantastic, an absolute brilliant show on a streaming service that not many people have. So yes, the media could be a lot better, but the toys... nah, the toys are pretty good. What do you think the next Legacy Combiner will be? I'm pretty sure Onslaught was leaked a while back, so probably Bruticus? That or maybe SS86 will give us a Devastator, but that's not Legacy, that's beside the point. Actually, wait, no, Legacy Combiners do count core class, so the next Combiner is probably going to be Dino King. A couple of people asked me, favorites continuity / media. Call me a pleb, but the first 3 movies. It's what I grew up with, it's what I constantly reference. Is it a juvenile continuity / series? Yes, absolutely, but I love it. In fact, Paper Plane did a recent video on that, and I really recommend you check it out. I've been looking at potentially trying to obtain Iron Factory IFG figures, and would like to know, as I'm new to third party, if you feel they'd be up to the same quality, if being revealed this long since 2018 without releasing yet. Okay, the thing about Iron Factory is that they announce things and then they take ages to release. It's not indicative of quality, Iron Factory just takes their time. So don't worry about the release schedule, they'll get around to it eventually, and whether it's good or not has nothing to do with that. What are your opinions on the Bayverse not getting a real conclusion? Just go watch TFI's Finest Hour, easy as that. How do you feel about Bumblebee taking Optimus's place as Hasbro's main mascot? He hasn't? He had the Bumblebee movie, but that was about it. Since when did Bumblebee replace Optimus Prime? He hasn't. Got a few questions asking, what's the favorite review I've ever done, or the favorite script I've ever done, or something similar to that. Honestly, it's a video that either people didn't see or they massively disagreed with. It's the Metroid video. Playing through all of those games, scripting everything, figuring out new editing techniques to do it, it was just a blast. Unfortunately, because it's not Transformers, as I mentioned in a previous question, the algorithm kind of f***ed it over. And the people who did watch it really hated my opinions on Samus Returns and Metroid Fusion. Apparently I'm a fake fan for playing Samus Returns and not AM2R, and a lot of people told me I played Fusion wrong because I wasn't supposed to binge it, or I needed to play it on the original hardware, or I needed to go exploring after the fact. Look, I get it, but what's done is done. I have my opinions on that game and they're staying there. But the video itself, I had an absolute blast making, and it would be nice to maybe delve into Dread someday because that was also fantastic, but I don't really think I have time for it, sadly, and I don't know where I could even fit it in, aside from maybe a top 20 Nintendo Switch games video, which, when the console dies, I'll maybe think about it. Which 3P figs / companies would you suggest for chug collectors that would fit at least somewhat in scale with mainline size classes? There isn't. There hasn't really been third-party chug in like 5 years because Hasbro has been doing everything. Which Action Master would you want to have a new transforming figure? I'm set because there's going to be a new Bludgeon on the way. Okay, personally I'd like Gut Cruncher, but hang on a second there. Bludgeon's a pretender, not an Action Master, so what? What's the most frustrating moment in Transformers you've had to endure? Kill me! Do you think Transformers have started to become easier to get? Yes, in everywhere except Canada. As you've listed in this question, the UK seems to be doing very well. Australia seems to be doing fantastically. Like, we're getting everything now. Gone are the years where it's like, oh, sorry, we couldn't get Minerva, it just didn't fit. Now we can just walk into a store and things are right there, or there's a pre-order on JB Hi-Fi. In fact, I think that's the case in most countries except Canada. I consistently hear issues about the state of Transformer collecting over there, and I really feel sorry for you guys. Now, I got two questions here, but they're both kind of the same answer. The first one is, what was my first Transformers figure? And the second is, why am I so obsessed with third-party legends? They kind of lead into each other, because my first ever Transformers figure was 2007 Legends Class Blackout. From then on, I wasn't just obsessed with Transformers, I was obsessed with small-scale Transformers. And that kind of evolved into my love of third-party legends, because as I became older and got a disposable income, I ended up picking up Iron Factory Windblade. And from there, well, you know the rest. Do you think the current WGA strike is going to work this time? It will, but the strike's gonna take a year at least, just like last time. What are some of your most controversial takes on Transformers? Looking back, I think the one that got a lot of people pissed off was the Springer versus Springer video. Some people just did not like my take on that at all. There is a very defensive group that clings to the Thrilling 30 version. Apparently, you cannot criticize that toy because it is the greatest Voyager to ever exist. What would be a good way shelving/cabinets to display a decent amount of figures? I don't display, but everyone I know who does display just uses Detolfs. Go to IKEA, get the Detolfs. Got a couple of questions here asking why I always show the house burning down when I don't have access to certain figures. It's basically a lore reason/shorthand reason for me moving house. Due to some familial circumstances, we ended up having to sell the old property and move to a different one. And for a while, my collection was in storage. For a long time, it was at a storage facility. So basically, when I don't have access to previous footage from a previous review, because I tend to back that up, and I don't have access to the figure currently, I'll just show that and apologize for not being able to show proper comparisons. Shouldn't be that much of a thing anymore going forward. Maybe a little bit, but not that much. What is your favorite large-scale transformation scene in all of TF media? Easy. Unicron from the 86 movie. Just that scene is impeccably directed, and it was a massive moment of my childhood. Just seeing something that big was a Transformer was just like, holy shit. It's still brilliant. It's great to watch in the cinemas if you can catch one of those reruns. What can I say? It's a great film. You wish Nintendo would release an upgrade Switch model already? And if so, what would you like to see included? Not really, to be honest. I know it has to happen because the industry keeps pushing graphics forward and you have to keep up, but personally, I'm not a graphics kind of guy. I'd rather a game looks like shit and be fun than constantly pushing graphics and just having boring gameplay. Keep in mind, the Xenoblade series has looked beautiful on hardware that's at least half a decade old. So yeah, I don't need a new Switch. I like my current Switch. It's not even the OLED version, it's just the regular battery updated version. I'm fine with it. When selling off parts of your collection, have you considered offering to your community first before hitting the general market? No, it's too much of a hassle. The general community is spread out widely across the world, and postage from Australia is kind of Plus, if something goes wrong with it, I then have to go fix it. I have to refund shipping, I have to chase things up. And if that happens with a fan of mine, then that can sometimes come back to me and people can post on social media, "Oh no, you've done horrible, they stole my figure." When in reality, I'm just contacting Ozpost saying, "Hey, where the f***'s the parcel?" I mean, just ask Sheep Wielder. I bought him a Crasher and ended up getting lost in transit for 2 months. So yeah, no, I just pop it on the local Aussie groups and sell it there. Less of a hassle. So please, I know the person asking this didn't comment that, but for those watching this, please don't ask if you can buy figures I don't like. Chances are I am going to sell them, but when I do, I'm going to do them on my own terms. Had a few people asking me, what would my ideal Transformers game be? Pretty simple. Just make a Xenoblade game with Transformers. Use the same engine, use the same combat system, but add transformation into the mix. In fact, they can already do that because that was a thing with the Skells in X. Focus on the exploration, have all the composers come back. That is literally the ideal game. Xenoblade is my favorite game series of all time, so it would make sense I'd want a Transformers version. Nintendo and Hasbro, please get on that. Is it okay for a new Transformers reviewer to review bad figures for curiosity or for variety's sake? I mean, yeah, it's fine, but don't go out of your way to buy Transformers figures just to review them. Buy what you want to buy, and if something's bad, then be honest about it. If you're just buying things for the sake of content, then it's a bad road to go down. But if you're genuinely curious, if you genuinely want to check it out, then that's fine. But buying for the sake of content is one of the roads that lead you down burnout and also financial ruin, so don't do that. Do you think Magic Square has the potential to be the best third-party Legends company? Not really, they keep using bullshit engineering, so no. What figure that has not been released yet that you you would feel... I can't... This question, I don't know if it makes grammatical sense, but I get what you're meaning. I was like, okay, name a figure that you'd want to get made, but it can't get made. And that's pretty easy. Chug Death's head. I really want them to do that, but Marvel will never let that happen. Do you care about scale and accuracy when you display your figures? Don't I say this every video I do, that accuracy is not something I care about and scale can f*** off? The Sambo chart? Well, I guess that's your answer there. A few people asked about figures that I liked upon getting them, but disliked later, or the reverse. Disliked upon getting them, and liked later. From like to dislike, probably Studio Series Blackouts. For the first couple of weeks, I absolutely loved that figure, but in time, I just sort of lost that love. It's just finicky and the panels don't stay in place, and don't even get me started on the Grindor version. But in the other direction, a recent example I can think of is Legacy Skyquake. Upon getting him, I wasn't really sure because of the way the chest worked, and it just seemed a bit iffy. Then I found out there was a trick to it, which I'll link in the description below. And once I fixed that, the entire figure became recontextualized. It went from something that was really underdone to something that was genuinely brilliant. Really glad it went that way though, because I kinda wanted to pick up Dreadwing as well, and now I can do so confidently. Legacy Menasor and Volcanicus shape up to be fun romps in combining robot goodness. So how do you think combiners will be handled from now on? I think Menasor is going to be the blueprint of a big bot that has a lot of skeletal parts on it. It's not going to be that crazy when it comes to other combiners, but they're definitely going to take some cues from it. When getting footage for a review, how do you find time to take out extra figures for stock footage in a video? It's pretty easy. Either I already have the footage and then I just reuse it. I've cataloged pretty much all the videos back to around the time when I did the Wei Zhang Thunder Leader review, because I realized I was selling that figure off and I'd never get footage for it again. And then after the Legendary Marathon that followed it, unfortunately I lost those bits of footage, but after that, I made a habit of keeping every piece of footage I had. So if I already have that footage, I'll just drag and drop it in so I don't have to bring it out. But if I don't, my collection's separated into series boxes. So I got one for Earthrise, I got one for Siege, I got one for Classics. I got 3 for Studio Series, but that's just because there's so many damn figures. But what I'll do is I'll just go to the box, take it out, use it for the filming, and then pop it back. Easy as that. I kind of film in one go in chronological order for the script, so it's not that hard. What is the best Transformer to come out this year, and why is it mainline Air Razor? Weird way to say Tard. What is your favorite version of Megatron, and why? Hobo with a shotgun, because he's a hobo with a shotgun. In the breakdown vid, you mentioned you disliked the Warden era, so what are exact reasons for that, and who led the brand better, Mark or Archer? There are a lot of reasons why I disliked John Warden. Firstly, he had way too big of a hard-on for G1. I like G1. I don't like it when there's nothing but G1. All the other series got thrown out the window because he didn't think they were financially viable. Secondly, he was way too obsessed with gimmicks. The Prime Wars trilogy was just a farce, especially at its start and end. Every figure being a combiner was such a big mistake. It just led to so much mediocrity. Thirdly, he didn't tell ILM to f*** off with their designs. Aaron Archer said, no, we can't make toy designs out of these. Come back with something that has more kibble. Aaron Archer didn't say that, so we got bullshit like this. And yes, Warden did make Studio Series, but that was the one respite from Generation 1 that we had as collectors. So who do I prefer? Well, Aaron Archer, obviously. Yes, there's one particular friend of mine who won't watch this video, thankfully, who will be pissed the f*** off that I said that, but I don't care. At least Aaron Archer had some unique and interesting ideas. What are your thoughts on the High Moon, Cybertron games, and TF Prime? TF Prime was pretty good when I watched it as a kid. These days, less so, it kinda meanders, but I still like it. And as for the High Moon War for Cybertron games, I haven't really played them. I've played the DS versions, and I loved them as a kid, and they're still quite fun now. In fact, I actually just played some the night before recording this, so it's fresh in my mind, and yes, they do mostly hold up aside from the controls. But yeah, no, I do own the High Moon games, but I have not played them yet. With Lockdown being your namesake, do you plan to review any Lockdown figures soon? Not particularly. The closest is maybe Iron Factory Lockdown, because there's a few things to say about that. But even then, I don't know if the script is strong enough. I guess I could do a Legendary video, but this year's Legendary Marathon is kind of full as is. It's already been planned out. Have you sold off figures and then regretted selling them once they were no longer in your collection? If so, what figures? Funny story about that, actually. So, that same friend that I mentioned hating Aaron Archer earlier gave away most of his Movieverse collection because he just wasn't appreciating it. I ended up getting Hunt for the Decepticons Hailstorm from him, and then I was gonna sell it off because I was in a bad financial state. And he said, oh, well, can I have that back? And I said, yeah, sure, you can just take it back. And then I regretted it after that because I kind of liked that figure. And then he regretted taking it back, and he said, nah, I don't want this anymore. So he gave it back to me. So it's kind of doing a musical chairs thing with of the figure. But hey, I got him back now and it's all good. Got a couple of people asking what my favorite guilty pleasure transformer is. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious. If you could recommend one figure that you believe everyone should experience, what would it be? I think you know the answer to that question. What is your favorite Beast Wars figure? I think you know the answer to that question. Couple of questions on underrated figures that deserve more love. For me, it's two of the same mold, Siege Magnus and Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime. Now, are these figures as good as their originals? Well, doesn't really apply to Siege Magnus because he's sort of a double homage, but with Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime, no, he's not. But in both cases, they're really fun on their own terms. They're awesomely articulated, they got some really cool details and really cool features, and yes, they are not the originals, and I know a lot of people won't get them because they're not updated properly, but as their own things, they are really fun, and I highly recommend them. And this is coming from someone who, for the longest time, constantly on Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime. I thought that because it was worse than the original, there was no love to be found there. Turns out, not the case at all. He's a fantastic figure in his own right. Would it be better to get the original? Yeah, probably, but it's still fun, you know? Hello, that toy guy. I guess you want to know what pizza I like, and this is gonna sound really weird, but bear with me here. 4 cheeses with a red base and mushrooms. Yes, I know the 4 cheeses is typically done with a white base, but I don't care. It's my pizza. I know what I like. And mushrooms for a bit of extra texture, because you. Yeah, I really like blue cheese. What you gonna do about it? And building on from that, pineapple on pizza. Thoughts? I mean, if you like it, you like it. Not really my thing. What I'll typically do if I have pineapple on pizza is I'll eat the pineapple off separately and then eat the rest of the pizza. But I mean, if you like pineapple on pizza, sure, it's not the end of the world. Is there any figure that you bought, 3PO official, that you considered a grail that you regret buying? Keroro Starscream. I bought it. Turns out the stickers came with the magazine, not the figure itself. So I'm just left with a Starscream with no paint. Oh joy! What's the most underrated figure from the Prime Wars trilogy? Well, I've already covered it. It's Rodimus. Everyone hates that thing because of the gimmick and the weird shoulders, but I think it's really fun. Now, this question kinda confuses me. A few people asked it. Which collaborative figure would I like to see made? Have you not seen my collaborative videos on this channel? None of them! Collaborative is garbage! Just stop it! Just time and time again, they have constantly released awful collaborative figures. I don't want collaborative figures anymore. I want Hasbro to just stop. That said, the concept of a Thunderbirds combiner does intrigue me because Thunderbirds is awesome. I don't think the collaborative team should ever touch that, but it would be pretty good to see in mainline, or even third party. And as for which 5 vehicles, there are 5 Thunderbirds right there. I don't know what to say. What third-party figures fall under Chug for you? Anything that would normally be leader class scale at mainline. So stuff like Double Dealer, yeah, you can sort of consider that Chug even though it's not meant to be. In fact, most of Fans Hobby's lineup can sort of be considered Chug. But aside from that, nah, the scales don't really work. I mean, if you don't care about scale, fine, but, you know, if you do care about scale, then yeah, it doesn't really line up. What's your favorite Iron Factory figure so far? If I had to pick one at random, probably Cliff Jumper. It's just a small, little, fun guy. In terms of alt mode, what Cybertronian form couldn't you let slide? Call me crazy, but I think animated Cybertronian Optimus Prime just looks ugly in vehicle mode. It's cohesive, it makes sense, but I just think it looks bad. It's not even an objective thing, it's just I dislike it. Not that objectivity even exists anyway, I'm just saying I can't justify it, it's just something I think. Who do I want done in Gamer Edition? 2 main figures come to mind. The first is Demolishor. Not many people talk about him because he was a pre-order exclusive or some sort of DLC and it was a bit shady back then. Yeah, that was back in the day where pre-order bonuses were the worst thing we got. God, I miss those days. But he'd be really cool to see. In fact, any version of Demolishor would be really cool to see. The second is Ramjet from the DS games. You actually had to plug in a code to get him specifically, back in the days when we had cheat codes instead of microtransactions. Again, boy, I miss those days. But that color scheme, I don't know what it really is. It's sort of G2, but it sort of isn't, but it's brilliant. I just want to see that get a physical toy at some point. It would be really awesome. What do you think of Kang Toys Predaking? I want it, but it's expensive and I have to prioritize other things at the moment. Hopefully I can get it one day, but we'll have to see. Do you ever feel that you develop a personal bias towards a figure based on the copy of the figure you have received rather than the concept? For example, you didn't particularly like Generation Springer despite its mass popularity in the fandom, and it seems like it's because your copy of the figure fell a bit short in the QC area. While that does happen, that's not a thing with Springer. People tell me that I'm not transforming the windshield right and that it's a QC issue, but I keep seeing videos and none of them are tabbing in either. So what I define as not tabbed in, and what everyone else seems to define as not tabbed in, seems completely different. But in general, that does tend to happen, but for me, I don't like figures based on concepts, I like them based on execution. Ultimately, if a figure's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. Doesn't matter which series, doesn't matter which aesthetic, just is it a good figure in execution? But I'm sorry, but I don't think Springer is. And I know a lot of people, not necessarily you, but a lot of people say it's just QC and that I'm reviewing it wrong and sending me death threats over it. I don't know why they're doing that, but it is what it is. What's your favorite of the original 4 Headmasters? I don't own any of the original G1 versions, but my favorite is probably Chrome Dome, specifically because of the Make Toys figure. It is brilliant. Okay, it's a really long question, so I'm not going to read the whole thing out, but it basically boils down to, are there any characters that you don't mind buying multiples of? And the answer to that is basically all of them. I'm happy to own multiple versions of characters, doesn't matter which character it is. I don't collect things to have one of each character. It's more one of each molds than one of each character, but if I like a mold even then, I'm happy to buy multiples of it. What are some older third-party figures that you want to track down soon? Still looking for a cheap Iron Factory Dinobot set, but I don't know if I'll ever find it. Those things go for way too much these days. Do you feel like shows including Transformers Animated and Transformers Prime should get a revival season or leave them alone? The beauty of Transformers is that it changes and evolves. There's always something new to discover. Sure, they might not end the way you want them to, but at least if you don't like one thing, you can wait for the next thing to come around. The only exception to that would have been Animated. I would have loved to have seen that continue, but I don't feel it's right with Derek Wyatt having passed away. So no, I think new things are probably better for the franchise. What would you like to see change, refined, and evolve in your future content? Consistency. I want to have more time to do these, but it's tough as shit. That, and I'd also like to do more miniseries, stuff like Menasor Month. I've got 2 ideas for miniseries, but they're going to take a lot of work, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to do them. Well, I know when one of them is, but it's actually 2 years off. Yeah, I have a plan for a miniseries that's going to happen in 2 years, but you'll understand if/when I actually get to do it. If you had to choose a video game franchise that is, oh god damn it, with music that goes unnecessarily hard, what franchise would it be? Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That game is the shit. The live big band is so good. I will never tire of listening to that game's soundtrack. It's just brilliant. Out of every Scramble City style combiner, what is your favorite and least favorite? Okay, so specifically Scramble City, so we're only talking about that original group of G1 stuff. If we're talking G1 only, it's Defensor, because I just find him boring. But if we're talking about Scramble City in general, probably G2 Superior. I just don't like the color scheme of that. And for G1, for the best, I'd probably go Bruticus. But if we're talking outside of G1, probably a cross between Battle Gaia and G2 Menasor. Those two are sexy as f***. Does Battle Gaia count as G1? JG1, I guess, although some guy in the comments will tell me it doesn't. What do you think of Nightshade from Earthspark? They are adorable and bigots can f*** off. What do you think of the Super Mario movie? If you're talking about the original one from the 90s, I think it's hated on way too much. It's not accurate to the Mario source material, but it's a really fun movie. What is the best Transformers line in your opinion? For me, it's probably Transformers 2010, because there were some absolute banger figures in there. If we're looking at a close second, probably Kingdom. I will say though, Legacy Evolution is shaping up to dethrone 2010. Seriously. I don't know what the designers are smoking this year, but they're doing some amazing shit. If you could erase one thing from Transformers history, what would it be? What did you expect me to pick? Studio series have been... okay, another grammar thing here. I'm getting confused here. But what figure is due for a remake with a modern touch? Barricade. The original Barricade was such a disappointing figure. It's so flimsy and wibbly. I'm worried I'm going to constantly break it during transformation. Just remake Barricade with better engineering, please. The movie masterpiece is rubbish anyway, so we kind of need it. Do you feel like Hey Bro is catching up to third party? Okay, ignoring third party legends, I actually think they've surpassed them. They're more comprehensive in the character lineups, and it doesn't feel like the engineering wants to kill you. Have you ever considered opening Letterboxd? No, I'm not really fond of releasing text-only reviews. I like the editing process. I'm happy to post my opinions online, but Letterboxd doesn't seem that important to me. What was a figure that was so bad/good it made you rethink your stance on a given topic? I just did a video on that. Best Scout Class figure. Hunt for the Decepticons, Backfire. He's great. What is the best video game you have ever played before? Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. It is great. What is your favorite LEGO Hero Factory and Bionicle character? Hero Factory is Core Hunter, that set looks awesome, and Bionicle is Brutaka because the set is also awesome. Top 5 New Age figures. In no particular order, we've got Optimus Prime, just a brilliant little transformation and a brilliant representation of the character. The Bumblebee 2.0 mold, it's just a really good transformation that somehow takes the MP45 system and makes it good. Don't know how they managed to do that at such a small scale. It's black magic. Red Mirage, it's just a fantastic little figure. Seeker mold is brilliant. And Megatron, just a fantastic Megatron figure that's probably better than the Masterpiece. Does Xenoblade Chronicles 3 live up to your expectations? Yes, up until the end of Chapter 5. After that, the ending kind of fell off for me. Didn't really have that sense of catharsis. It was written very well, but it sort of meandered here and there, and by the time it got back on track, it didn't lose me per se, but it didn't really grip me as much. And Future Redeemed was also decent, but it didn't really fix the ending of that. Instead, it just sort of said, oh, it's part of the grander scope now. Which, you know, great if you've played the certain other games it mentions previously, that's fantastic. But I haven't, I'm a Xenoblade guy, not a Xeno series guy. But for now, it was a very good game, just not on the level of the first game. How do you overcome YouTube not getting your videos out?
That's the neat thing. You don't.
When did you first make the It's a Legends figure sign? Oh yeah, that was easy, I remember that one. That was the Iron Factory Lyo Convoy video. Yeah, that video hasn't aged the best though, because I said that the Iron Factory should pursue this new aesthetic for a whole bunch of things, but they haven't. They sort of half pursued that, half pursued another style, and they're sort of just meandering. Iron Factory could be doing a lot better, let me tell you. Do you like Persona 4 Golden? Yep, but I haven't finished it yet. I accidentally got the wrong ending, and I went back to my last save, and it was before the Forgotten Forest. So I have to play through 5 hours again, and I just have not yet because it just feels like a massive undertaking. What's your favorite JoJo?
Oh no!
Who do you think is the most overrated Transformers character? Okay, this is gonna piss off a lot of people, but Fort Max. I don't get why people are attracted to him. What is your white whale? G1 Raiden. I am actually in the position where I can save up and afford one, but I have other things that I need to focus on at the moment instead. On Buy, the price at the moment is around 1,000, 1,200, and I can easily save up for that. So hopefully after I've gotten a few things out of the way, I can work towards that maybe in the second half of the year. What, in your opinion, is your most garbage take? All of them. Will your Scottish wizard get a raise? Technically yes, but 10% raise of $0 is still 0. Do you like ducks? No, because autocorrect constantly changes them when I don't mean to say that. Bionicle or Transformers? Transformers, easily. I probably wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for Transformers. How did you get such beautiful eyes? You don't want to know that. Are there any video game franchises that you want to get into but just don't have access to / haven't done yet? Well, I don't know why you're asking this question if you're in my walls, but that's easy. The Kirby series. I've downloaded a whole bunch of them and I'm ready to play them, but it's just a matter of time. Would you? No. And that finally does it. I've been recording for 2.5 hours. Wow. But I do hope you've enjoyed this. It was a blast to record all of these and read all of your responses. Editing's gonna be a pain in the ass, but I'm sure it's gonna be good in the end. To everyone who's joined me over the years, thanks for sticking around with this channel, even in the face of, you know, poor upload schedules and all that shit. I'll be back to work with more reviews coming soon, but until then, there's a context for everything, even if it's not found here. F*** you.